The financial industry has been selling you a story for decades. Save enough, build a big enough portfolio, and one day that portfolio becomes your paycheck, right? That's the whole game. That's what every calculator, every blog post, every talking head on TV tells you to optimize for. But when you've been working with actual retirees for over 25 years like I have, the story falls apart pretty fast. I'm Josh Maley, the president of Modern Capital, where we help with everything from investment management and tax prep to retirement income and estate planning, as well as our unique performance pledge. And in this video, we're going to talk about how income actually works in retirement. The 4% rule is not a plan, and the things you need to be thinking about instead. So let's get into it. Chapter 1, the income stack nobody talks about. Here's the thing in this industry that almost never gets said out loud. For most retirees, the portfolio is not the engine, it's the backup generator. Social Security Administration puts out data every year showing exactly how retirees are funded. And the picture is not what the financial media sells you. Social Security alone provides for at least half the total income for half of all older Americans, and for about 1 in 4 seniors, it's 90% or more of their income. Now let that sink in. We spend so much time obsessing over the portfolio number, and for a massive chunk of retirees, Social Security is doing almost all the work. Now layer in pensions. Around 30% of today's retirees still receive some form of pension income. For those households, that pension is basically a second Social Security check. It shows up every month, it's predictable, and it dramatically reduces the pressure on the investment portfolio. And then there's continued work, which is probably the most misunderstood piece of the whole picture. About 27% of retirees report actual earned income in retirement, not because they have to, but because retirement isn't always an on-off switch. For a lot of people, it's more like a dimmer, part-time consulting, seasonal work, passion projects, things that are much more on their terms. So you've got Social Security as the foundation, pensions adding predictability, work income filling early gaps, and the portfolio sits underneath all of it like a shock absorber. So if you've been planning purely around a portfolio number this whole time, you've probably been optimizing for the supporting actor, not the star. Chapter 2, why the 4% rule disconnect actually makes sense. Now let's talk about the rule everybody hands you. Withdraw 4% of your portfolio in year 1, adjust for inflation, and your money lasts 30 years. Too many retirees treat it like a gospel. I plan around something else entirely, and once you see how the rule was built, you'll understand why. William Bengen first published it in 1994 in the Journal of Financial Planning, and he built it around the single worst 30-year stretch in the US market history. It was never the typical case. It was never the survive the disaster case. Research from Michael Kitces shows just how extreme that is. A retiree who starts at 4% is just as likely to die with more than 6 times their starting money as they are to end with less than they began with. Now, sit with that for a second. Follow the rule to the letter, and the most common outcome isn't running out. It's dying with a giant pile you never touched. Even Bengen has moved off the number. According to Money's reporting on his recent book, he now calls 4.7% the worst case floor and says most retirees today could reasonably start closer to 5.25 or 5.5. The man who invented the rule is telling you it's too conservative, and the industry is still printing 4% on every brochure. But the entire premise is broken because most people spend more early in retirement on things like experiences and travel, and more later on healthcare related expenses. Besides that, there are a ton of other things to consider, like when Social Security or RMDs kick in. The only real use of the 4% rule is a starting point for the conversation. Chapter 3, the psychological layer nobody budgets for. Advisors love to play the math game, and I get it. The math is clean, it fits in a spreadsheet, and makes clients feel like something is being controlled. But I've been doing this for 25 years, and the math alone misses something critical. Sleeping at night is a legitimate planning outcome. I often see people get retirement with a solid portfolio and still feel anxious, not because the numbers don't work, but because they never built an income floor. Every market dip feels like a crisis when your portfolio is also your paycheck. Every bad quarter becomes a question of whether you can afford groceries in 10 years. But when retirees have guaranteed income sources covering their essentials, they spend differently, they stress less, and they are far more comfortable actually using their portfolio for what it's good for. Travel, gifts, one-time expenses, and the go-go years when they want to do more. The psychological difference between those two retirements is way more dramatic than most people anticipate. I think that's where the real planning conversation needs to go. Not just how big does the portfolio have to be, but how strong can we make the income floor so the portfolio gets to play a supporting role instead of carrying the whole show. Chapter 4, what this means for how you plan right now. So if you're still in the accumulation phase, working, saving, and building, this changes the question you should be asking. Instead of asking, how big does my portfolio need to be, try asking, how strong can I make my income floor? A couple with 2 solid Social Security benefits could easily have $70,000 or $80,000 or more guaranteed, inflation adjusted for life. That's before any other sources of income hit the bottom line. which is why that income floor changes everything about how much pressure is on the portfolio. And for younger people, specifically your 20s and 30s, income growth matters more than portfolio optimization right now. Every dollar you add to your career earnings permanently raises your Social Security benefit, your saving capacity, and your future options. Portfolio returns can't do that. For those of you in your 50s or getting close to retirement, this is the time to think carefully about when each spouse claims Social Security, whether there's any pension coordination to consider, and whether part-time work in the early years of retirement can protect the portfolio during its most vulnerable window. Because sequence of returns risk is real. Two retirees with the same 8% average return over 20 years have wildly different outcomes if one hits bad years at the start and is forced to sell. Protecting the portfolio in those early years with the other income is the most powerful tool we have. And for those already in retirement, check what your income stack actually looks like, not just your portfolio balance. What is covered by guaranteed income? What are you actually pulling from investments? If your essentials are covered and your portfolio is just sitting there for one-off expenses, that's actually the plan working exactly as it should. Every situation is different, but the direction is the same. Build the floor strong enough that the portfolio gets to be the lifestyle fund, not the survival fund. That's the difference between using your investments and living off them. If you want to look at your own retirement income picture, that's exactly what we do. We'll walk through where your guaranteed income is, where the gaps are, and how to think about building a floor that actually supports the retirement you want. Head to the link in the description and schedule a conversation with my team. Let's put purpose behind every dollar.